In this video, we're going to be talking about a concept called fuzzing in Python, and it's essentially a way to brute force and test your code until it breaks. So it's actually a really interesting concept and it has a really interesting name. So I thought this would be a great concept to share on this channel. Now, to understand fuzzing, you do need to be aware of the basic concepts of unit testing or just testing code in general, because fuzzing is used mostly with testing and it's going to test a function with a lot of different inputs until it breaks. So what I'm going to do in this lesson is show you a sample script of fuzzing so that you can use it in the future in case you want to test your functions. So first we're going to import random, and we're going to import string. Now there are packages out there that do fuzzing for you, but we're going to create a custom implementation which is a lot simpler, and in a future video we will probably go over one of the packages. But in this case we're going to first create a function that generates a random string, so generate random string, and it's going to take a length of type integer and it's going to return to us a string. Now we need to define the characters of type string, which is going to equal string.AsciiCharacters plus string.digits plus string.punctuation. So those are the characters we want to use when we are testing our strings. The more variety of characters you have, the bigger the chances that you might be able to break your function. But include all the characters that you're expecting to use in your function. Then we need to create a result string. So result string of type string is going to equal an empty string dot join, and we're going to call random choice to get a random character from the characters and add the characters for underscore in range of the length. And then we're going to return the result string. Now, if we actually use this function and we print the generated string of, let's say, 10 characters and run this, you should get something back like this, which can almost be seen as a random password generator. So that's the first function we need for this all to work. Next, we're going to create the fuzzer. So here we'll type in def fuzzer and we will return a string. And the fuzzer is going to be a generator because we want to generate unlimited or indefinite amounts of these random strings until one of them actually breaks the program. And it's not really convenient to create a huge list, so we're going to create these elements one at a time. So here we'll type in while true. We're going to yield the generate random string, and we need to type in random integer from the range of 1 to 100. So these strings can be as short as 1 character and can be as long as 100. So that's going to be the fuzzer that we will be using. Next, we need a function that we're actually going to test, and this can be any function you want, but it does require an input and an output. So def sample function, which will take a string or an input string, if I can spell that, input string of type string, and it will return to us an integer. So the first thing we'll do in here is try the following code, and we're going to type in if 3 exclamation marks in input string, then we're going to raise an exception. And we're going to pretend that this is something that breaks our program. And here we will type in bad input. But if it does not run into this error, we're going to return 0 because the function exited successfully. Then we also need to accept. So we're going to accept the exception as E, and here we can print that there was an error, so we know what it is, and the error is going to be the error message. Then we will return 1 because it was not a successful function execution. So again, fuzzing is going to help us put an indefinite amount of inputs into this function so we can test it until we break it. And the point of fuzzing is to brute force your functions until you break them, because sometimes it's not that easy when you're creating unit tests to know exactly what will break it. So you might have maybe 4 or 5 test cases for a function, but you might be missing 1 or 2 scenarios. So fuzzing is a great technique for trying to break your code even further so you can avoid having these issues further on down the line. Now let's create a main function where we can put all this code together so you can actually see it in action. And first we're going to have I of type integer, which will just be looped through. So for input string in fuzzer. So we're going to retrieve one element at a time indefinitely. We're going to increment I, and this is not needed. This is just for me to show you how many times we've looped through this. And we will type in that the result of type int is going to equal the sample function with the input string. So each time we loop through this, we are grabbing an input from the fuzzer, or actually a random string that we have generated that can be between 1 and 100 characters long. So we're going to do that indefinitely until we break this function. And the way we know we broke it is if the result is equal to 1, then we can print that first, this was run number I, so we have a good idea on how many times it ran, and the cause is going to be the input string. So we actually know which input broke our function. Then we need to break out of this and finish the loop so we can exit the program. Then all we have to do inside here is call main. But with all that being put into place, we are now able to test the sample function an indefinite amount of times until it breaks. And in this example, it's going to break as soon as we run into 3 exclamation marks. So as soon as the program generates a random string with 3 exclamation marks in a row, it's going to break our program. And if we run this, it's going to run for a few seconds, and we're going to get the error back that there was a bad input. And it's also going to tell us the cause. So at run 13,478, we had this input string. And inside this input string, we generated a random group of characters that had the 3 exclamation marks in there, which is something that broke our program. And each time we run this, we're going to get a different result because, of course, running into 3 exclamation marks depends highly on chance, but it does happen and it will crash our program for some reason if we do that. So it's good that we use the fuzzer to catch that. And this is a very simple example just to demonstrate how you can use fuzzing. Of course, your functions might be a bit more complex, but it can be a very good idea to test your functions via fuzzing if you want to make sure that they are robust and can handle any kind of input in any kind of scenario. But with that being said, that's actually all I wanted to cover in today's lesson. I do want to mention though that I've recently created an Instagram page dedicated to Python tips and tricks. I'll be posting a lot of videos there and a lot of good advice when programming with Python, so do check it out. I left a link in the description box down below. I would be happy to see you there because it will help you master Python one day at a time, and you will learn some really cool tips and tricks that you can use in the future when you are programming. So with all that being said, as always, thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video.